Naya Morgan was going to make everything fit into her suitcase if it was the last thing she did. She dropped to her knees, pinning down the top of the overflowing bag. Whoever wrote the email saying she could only bring one carry-on bag clearly did not understand how many outfits were needed for a week-long trip to Bermuda. Besides the scheduled meals and team-building activities, who knew what they were going to do? The one thing she did know for sure was that each of her friends, the trendsetters of Yatesville, would be dressed to kill. Her mom and stepdad's tax bracket meant she would never actually be able to compete with the off-the-runway fashions of her peers, but she had to try. She had no plans to continue to be friends with her haughty group beyond this trip, but she didn't want to be judged or ridiculed while on the boat either. So Naya had packed an ensemble and a backup for every possible situation, along with a copy of Sailing in Style, the guide she'd found in the 99-cent bin of her favorite indie bookstore, 2 family-sized boxes of cereal, and enough beef jerky to feed a small army. Some would call it over-prepared. She called it necessary. After all, being over-prepared was one of the reasons she'd received a coveted Yates Society scholarship and a place on the mega yacht that would take her on the celebratory cruise of a lifetime. Not only had each of this year's inductees graduated high school, though some lacked Naya's academic achievement awards, but they'd also made it through the arduous, months-long selection process and were being rewarded with this amazing adventure. Naya's forehead creased, and a wash of embarrassment and anger heated her cheeks as she remembered the rumor has it article that had clearly been aimed at her acceptance into the society. Diversity inductee, she grumbled. Well, this diversity inductee had maintained a high GPA throughout high school, volunteered with different disaster relief programs, had been the president of the pre-med club, and was a few months away from attending Johns Hopkins, with the goal of one day becoming the chief of ER with a career longer than the existence of Grey's Anatomy. Naya threw her weight against her suitcase and zipped it closed, before collapsing onto her back and stretching her arms overhead in triumph. A wet nose nudged her elbow, and she rolled onto her stomach, smiling as Smoochie's long tail shook his even longer, Twinkie-shaped body. He rubbed against her like a cat, his wiry terrier mix fur tickling her arm. She kissed the golden-white scruff on the top of his head, ignoring his cranky growl of protest. "I'll be back soon, Smoochie." She continued to scratch behind his ears, refusing to tell him that she would be off to college and gone for good by the end of the summer. Naya's phone trilled and she reached up, grabbing it from her floral duvet. Taylor. Naya jumped to her feet and ran to her vanity. She had to do a once-over before answering the video call from her best friend. She would sooner die than look a complete mess. Her friends were perfect, so she had to be too. Flecks of pink paint drifted to the floor as she dropped into the chair and swiped her flat iron off the plate she used to keep from further scorching the garage sale vanity she'd painted to match her floral wallpaper. The final video call ring sounded while she smoothed the flat iron through the baby hairs curling around her temples. Satisfied every last whorl had been straightened and she had no petal pink gloss on her teeth, Naya took a breath and redialed. Taylor answered on the first ring.